I would like to call to order the Monday, August 5th meeting of the City of Monona City Council. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Rademacher.
Here.
Alder Bernstein.
Here.
Alder DePula.
Here.
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the May 29th meeting?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Moving on to appearances, we have one appearance tonight, Richard Gartner. If you'd like to come up here to the microphone. Would like to speak about the referendum.
And can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Good. I'm Richard Gardner, live at 4711 Toniawatha Trail on the lake. We love Monona. We think it's the best. We love the services and we love all of the things that you folks do. However, there are some concerns. You are considering a referendum to maintain core services for the city of Monona. No one wants reduced services. So of the 3 options, 59% who responded to the survey you sent out chose the less expensive option. Did you read the survey participants' comments?
I'm sorry, we're really not supposed to interact with.
That's okay. It's
Just so
a
you know.
rhetorical
Okay.
question.
Okay. But yes, we all got the
What I
comments.
gleaned from the comments is that property owners don't want reduced services and don't want higher taxes. What,
Surprising, huh?
what do we want? We want better spending decisions. People in the survey comments questioned the priorities and wisdom of the city spending $6 million to purchase San Damiano. Is that how you pronounce that? Close enough anyway. And from what I have been informed, more than $10 million to purchase the waterfront property, which now houses Bank, Buck and Honey's, and the other properties in that area on the waterfront. And that we sold them for $1 to a developer. So they questioned the wisdom and the priorities. These 2 items alone would have provided $16+ million for core city maintenance and salary increases. It is my understanding that additional funds were spent, such as $1 million for the ice rink, local park improvements, and some TIF monies, etc. I say, we the people want better spending decisions. That money could have been spent for the core maintenance and salaries increases. So one of the questions that arises is, can we sell San Damiano? Can we sell it? Or are we obligated not to sell it to provide the core city maintenance and salaries increases? Again, as I said, that's rhetorical. On one of the flyers, it says, your donations make all this possible.
Is that a San Damiano flyer?
What about our taxes? And what about all the other costs that are associated with it? So, in conclusion, I would say, I, who would represent several people, would say, sell it and provide the core services you need for the city. Amen.
Thank you. I think if you'd like to make arrangements to meet with one of us to discuss this, we'd be happy to explain why all the capital budget spending cannot be used on operating. That's essentially money that's borrowed and we can't use it on operating.
And yes, who
So,
do you suggest I meet with?
City administrator,
You happy to?
would be happy to.
I'll be happy to do that, and I'll be happy to schedule the time.
Perfect.
Whenever I'm not
What,
golfing.
what about, Mayor,
Good
Mayor,
choice.
Mayor, what about meeting with our finance director to
Sure, and
explain
Mark could be in the
the
meeting too.
successful financial situation
Yeah.
going on down at the property you mentioned? Or meeting with our CDA chair to
Well, I
explain how
think
that...
Mark and Neil would
Okay,
be fine, I
okay.
think.
I
to
just-
start. Yep.
There just
And
might
if I-
be some misunderstandings, that's,
Yeah.
And if I could make another comment, I'm surprised more people aren't here,
yeah.
considering the comments that were made following the survey.
Right.
Yeah.
But, thank you for your time
You're
and
welcome.
consideration. We live in Monona, we wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Great,
That makes sense.
happy to hear it. Thank
And
you.
my contact information is all on the website. Just find city administrator on the website. All my contact info is right there.
Very
So
good, I'll do that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you don't have any other appearances, do you? There's no public hearing, there's no consent agenda. Moving on to council action items, I'm going to move up something from new business up to the beginning here, so the resident who's here about it will not have to stay through all of the TID explanations and everything. So unless anybody has a problem with that. So just moving down to new business 2A, this is started for immediate approval. Consideration of a special exception request for approval of a fence permit at 1409 Baskerville, put forth by the planning director. I guess, Doug, before we vote on the immediate approval, if you'd like to address why you're asking for immediate approval. Sir, if you'd like to sit up here, that'd be fine.
Good evening, everybody. So the reason, I'll get into it, of course, in more detail in a second, but the reason for the starring request here is so that the applicant, if council deems it appropriate, can proceed with the fence or at least have a decision this evening. This was noticed as part of the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and there were no comments that were received. Get into that a little bit more, but this has been publicly noticed with the immediate neighbors. There were no comments that were received, and so just put that request in for it to be one read tonight.
I think you need, like, to get going on it, right?
I
before-
believe so, yes. Yeah.
Soon, I think. So, is there a motion to take this out of order?
Move to suspend the rules and take this out of order.
Second. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Doug?
Thank you. So the request this evening is a special exception permit for a installation of a fence at 1409 Baskerville. This includes a portion along the northern property boundary which faces the alley between both Baskerville and Mathis Road. The remainder of the fence would enclose the rear yard of the property following the eastern and southern property boundaries. Applicant would like to install a 6-foot tall wood privacy fence located 4 feet back from the property line along the alley, and in consultation with the city attorney, it was deemed that this special exception was the appropriate path for consideration. Fences and hedges are regulated by Chapter 175, Section 22 of the Monona Code of Ordinances, and I did include that in the meeting packet as well for your reference. Fences must be located within lot lines, not pose a safety hazard as determined by the city's building inspector. Side and rear yard fences may be as tall as 6 feet in height, not extending beyond the front of the building line of the dwelling. Street yard fences may be no closer than 6 inches to the lot line. Corner lots may not have any fencing within 10 feet of the travel portion of any public highway. Those fences in the street yard must also be decorative, not pose a site issue as determined by the building inspector, and may not exceed 42 inches in height. So the request here this evening is a dimensional appeal from the ordinance that is not within the zoning code, and that's the reason for the special exception, rather than going through, say, the Zoning Board of Appeals. So That had initially been staff's direction to the applicant, so you'll see the materials sort of reference variances and things like that. But this, having spoken with the city attorney, was deemed the appropriate path forward this evening. So as part of the discussion, the location itself, this is a corner lot facing Baskerville, but also facing onto the alley. Both the height proposed at 6 feet, as well as the location are the challenges this evening that are being considered. The Director of Public Works did have a chance to look at this, confirm that it is an alley plowed and maintained by city vehicles, and I believe Pelletary trash pickup also happens within the alley. There were a couple concerns mentioned there about ability to operate, store snow against the fence, and sort of potential damage that may happen with that. The applicant did mention, and it was confirmed by going out on site, that there are other structures such as garages and fences that are within that 10 feet setback that are already existing as well. And I did ask the building inspector to go out. He reviewed the plans as well as the site and was comfortable that there were no vision challenges that would be posed over and above sort of the existing conditions that are there today. So the staff recommendation is discussion of the lot unique elements that are present, and if the council chooses to do so, suggested findings of fact and conditions were included in my staff memo as well. I know the applicant's here to share some background, and we can both answer questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Okay. Well, thank you, Doug, for the introduction. So my name's Andrew McLaughlin, and I was lucky enough to move to Monona 2 years ago after 10 bids and, a big price over asking, everybody's story at the time. And lucky enough with a VA loan at the time, which is unfortunately ignored a lot in this housing market. So Doug explained the fence pretty good. That's great. 6-foot privacy fence, 4 feet from the alley. So I had a note in my letter about a neighborhood precedent, which is that 9 out of 10 of the alley properties have a fence or a garage or another building structure that is 4 feet or less from the alley. So that's where I'm kind of saying precedent. So the unique situation for me is that unlike a typical corner lot in Monona that would have a city designated easement built in, given that we're the only residential alley in Monona, our properties go right up to the alley line. So actually across the way, and I do want to just for the record correct, I think it was at 1409 Baskerville. I'm actually at 1408 Baskerville. My neighbor David Huntley, though, across the way from my house, you can actually see his pin touching the alley of his property line, which, like I said, is very unique to the properties along the alley. So this would essentially mean that if I were to follow the 10-foot back setback rule, I would be, giving an additional 9 feet of alley to the city because I have no easement on my property, at least in terms of the alley. Also, I just want to point out that I think that the ordinance for the street in this case is dated 1994, but there was actually a transformation that happened between the 1970s and 1980s where the privately funded alley changed from a dirt road into a publicly paved streetway, which I am very thankful for. I am thankful for all the services that come down the alley, although I do not personally have my garbage cans out front since my property is on Baskerville. So just getting approval to build a fence, based on what I've set out here in the application and the flattest part of my yard, would be in line with neighborhood precedent and would help protect my, how old are they now? My 4 and my 6-year-old from entering the alley, whose yard goes right up to the alley. It's not like they spend any time playing on the easement because that doesn't exist in the alley. And then also give my family some privacy, because I don't know if any of you walked on the alley. I love the alley. I love all alleys, as a matter of fact. I love the alley over Monona Court over here in Madison. I'd love to run down it. But it's a very intimate space where I can be standing in my bedroom or my wife can be standing in her bedroom and just seeing a neighbor, who's walking down the alley. And so I just want to also conclude that any sort of pettiness that I may have mentioned in the letter, I really apologize for. I really have appreciated my neighbors' support throughout this process. Each one of them coming to talk to me about the plan in person. Yes, I don't think I have any other comments, but I'm definitely open to answering questions. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Patrick?
No, not really a question, but I lived on Baskerville for a while, and my son's very familiar with that alley, because he used to walk down the alley to Arrowwood, and I used to walk down the alley looking for him. But I totally understand the situation there, and what he's saying is 100% correct. I mean, it's very intimate, it's very close together. So, yeah, I just making a statement that, I would probably support such a thing. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm just curious, so the existing fences, are they just sort of grandfathered, even though they seem to be out of compliance with
Yeah. Can I just mention one more tidbit too, that I think my neighbor, Dave Dudley, Dave Dudley is actually a great singer who actually died 6 days on the road. Anyway, David Huntley, I think he moved into the property in 2010, and he actually got a building permit to do some other things to the property and looped in his fence upgrade. There was an existing structure there, but he rebuilt it with no problem, and that didn't get flagged during the rebuild process. I also think that, I believe that the biggest garage that is 4 feet from the alley, it's likely to have been rebuilt or maybe even just built in that way, late 90s and early 2000s, where at the same time that the house on the property was raised from 1 story to 2 story at that time. So I'm not sure, I feel like the history of the alley is sort of gray in terms of the grandfathering in, given that the ordinances date back to 1994.
I mean, clearly you've spoken with your neighbors, which, to me, that's huge.
And part of the agreement would be that you would sign something, so if the city plow, for instance, were to hit the fence, that
That's a good, yeah.
the city would not be held responsible, not that we typically
Don't
go
plan on
ahead
doing
and
that, right?
but,
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
yeah, so, any other questions anybody have?
No, I think this is, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Pardon? Brian?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I went and looked at the property, and I was prepared for this to be at ZBA, and so, and actually, I'm glad that it's coming this path. I know it's extra kind of deviated meeting, but I think this is definitely the more appropriate location for it, and I fully support it. I don't think this is setting any unique precedent that is gonna be reoccurring. This is a very, very unique property and a very unique circumstance, and I think it's appropriate.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, well then, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to see so many faces. See on the ballot.
Now you know what we all look like.
That's right.
Thanks, Doug. Thank
Mhm. Okay, I'm going to move back up to the beginning of unfinished business. Item 1A, consideration of Resolution 24-7-2422, approval of general development plan GDP for 112 and 208 Owen Road by Slindy Realty Company, put forth by the Plan Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, Doug?
Thank you. So this is a second read on the general development plan for the Owen Road, the Slindy developments over there. This is the Village Lane site as well as the existing USPS strip center as well. So nothing has changed. Can certainly go into more detail. I know we're joined by both Bert and Jeff Slindy this evening as well. This is the 237 unit phase development that will be there across 2 phases, 2 buildings, 5-story multifamily residential. And this was unanimously recommended for approval at the Plan Commission at June 24th.
Questions, anyone? Doug?
Just a comment then. I'm glad that you guys were able to come to an accommodation or get approval from Plan Commission, and so look forward to seeing you at CDA.
Anyone else?
My comment
Teresa?
is just that I was really thrilled to see the increase in height, the greater density. We need it. It's a good location for it. If there's any way you can put a few more trees in the ground, I'd be even happier. But
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderwood,
Aye.
Alder Rademacher,
Aye.
Alder Bernstein,
Aye.
Alder Kula,
Aye.
Alder Holmquist,
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next, item 2B, consideration of Resolution 24-7-2423, approval of Phase 1 Precise Implementation Plan, PIP, for 112-208 Owen Road by Slindy Realty Company, also put forth by the Plan Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Doug?
Thank you. So this is the PIP, the Precise Implementation Plan. This would be one half of the General Development Plan that was just approved. This is for the Village Lane site specifically. The developer would like to start there. It includes the road as well, sort of the connector street that would be fully on this property. And this would be 132 of the 237 units, including 214 parking stalls, 96 of those surface, 118 underground. So this exceeds the landscaping standards, this phased portion of the development, as well as the parking standards for the city. I think this was unanimously recommended to City Council for approval at the same June 24th meeting.
Any questions? Comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, or no, I'm sorry. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Rademacher,
Aye.
Alder Bernstein,
Aye.
Alder Kula,
Aye.
Alder Holmquist,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations.
It's a long time coming.
Yeah. Now, on to the next step. All right, we will move on to our TID creations. First, item 1C, consideration of Resolution 24-7-2424, creating tax increment District Number 11, put forth by the Community Development Authority. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And we have both Doug and Tom Stolper are here, Tom from the CDA, and Christina from Becker Professional Services, who has put together most of the package for us, is also here to answer questions. So, I don't know which one of
This
you,
is
Tom,
second
you wanna
read.
start?
We went through it last time. There's new questions. We'll try and answer them, but nothing's changed since the prior time, so back to you.
And which specifically, which do you want to explain, just for the benefit of the audience, which TID we're looking at here?
Number
11 through 17.
And we're looking at, we're taking each of these separately.
Oh,
So 11 is the Slindy property, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about this?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Oh, actually, I should mention that I had coffee with Gary Fraboni not too long ago, and he expressed his full support for the project, and after I kind of answered some questions about them being in the TID, he was in favor of that also.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Rick?
Yeah, Mark sent out a memo that our equalized value had been received, and that we would not be, even with the passage of these TIFs, exceeding the 12% limit. And I just wanted to get a little bit more explanation about that and how it might affect all these TIDs, if at all.
Tom, did you want to address that?
Yeah, I'll start, and then we can go from there. What Alder Bernstein said is in fact correct, but valuations and the 12% change over time, and while we are quote-unquote safe at this point, that isn't to say that a year from now we would be. And we've already gone through, but down the path, we've got all the plans created, which you all have and have seen, we've talked about. And if we don't do this now, then we gotta redo the plans, and we'll likely have to have another public hearing, and then it's a big to-do. So that's why we're proceeding down the the path that we've already been on.
One thing I would add to that is based on the numbers that Becker Services put together shows that the values, if we do it tonight, we can use the 2023 value as the base. If we wait and do it later after the 15th, then we would have to use the 2024 values as the base, and between all 7 of these, they went up 18%, so which is a pretty healthy increase for most of this is commercial, and that would just make it harder for those TIFs to be successful, right?
That's a true statement. And also in your 2023 to 2024 value, TID 10 was created in '24, so it would be in addition to the numbers that are on the sheet that Alder Wood is referring to.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, then would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Bernstein?
Aye.
Alder Tabula?
Aye.
Alder Holmquist?
Aye.
Alder Moore?
Aye.
Alder Wood?
Aye.
Alder Rademacher?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item, consideration of resolution 24-7-2425, creating tax increment district number 12, also put forth by the Community Development Authority. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve?
Second.
And this relates to
Riverfront.
River
Place, yes.
Monona Drive and West Broadway. Do you two want to have anything further to say about it?
No.
Pretty much what we heard last time. 2 other meetings, I guess. Yes. Any questions? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Tabula?
Aye.
Alder Holmquist?
Aye.
Alder Moore?
Aye.
Alder Wood?
Aye.
Alder Rademacher?
Aye.
Alder Bernstein?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to item E, consideration of resolution 24-7-2426, creating tax increment district number 13, put forth by the Community Development Authority. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move to approve?
Second.
And this relates to
Pirate Island.
Pirate Island, okay. Any questions? Brian?
I just have one, and it's more of a verification that this is a conservation and rehab district. Does that, I understand the reasoning behind that, particularly for Pirate Island parcels. The 3 other parcels that are, I think, Falcon Circle parcels, how does the conservation and rehab potentially impact those parcels, or does it not?
I don't think it does, and I'm going to if I say something wrong, Katrina will correct me. But the conservation district, in order to create it, you have to have a certain area that meets that criteria. You can have other stuff in there as long as you've got the right amount in total as a percentage to make it work. And this does. We've included those other 3 properties because there actually was a proposed development on that, at least 2 of the parcels, I don't know, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, and which was never realized. So that's certainly something that can come into being. The conservation rehab, the Pirate Island property is a lot of affordable housing that we already have in Monona. And by allowing this district, we can participate with the owners to do some rehab and make sure that that property stays as affordable in Monona.
Questions? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore?
Aye.
Alder Wood?
Aye.
Alder Rademacher?
Aye.
Alder Bernstein?
Aye.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to item F, consideration of resolution 24-7-2427, creating tax increment district number 14 and redevelopment area number 14 put forth by the Community Development Authority. Is there a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
Questions? Did you have anything else to say?
This is the east part of the existing Southtown Shopping Center, and it goes over, it includes the Chase Building, and I think it also includes the restaurant, the China Buffet, I believe is the name of it. It goes over to there. And so that's why this is, it includes the Floor and Decor and the big parking lot in front of it, the closed McDonald's as an example. So.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Thank you. Item G, consideration of resolution 24-7-2428, creating tax increment district number 15 and redevelopment area number 15, also put forth by the Community Development Authority. Is there a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
Anything?
This is the WPS property, with the exception of the main building, the newest main building. That's not in the district, but it includes the surrounding.
And this would be the.
And it also
top
includes
golf
those.
site, Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly right. There will be other development on this site in this district, but the Top Golf is in this district, yes.
Questions, anyone? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Motion passes. Let's see. Moving on, item H, consideration of resolution 24-7-2429, creating tax increment district number 16 and redevelopment area number 16, also put forth by the Community Development Authority. Motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
This is the Sorge property and some others right there, the corner of Nichols and the Monona Drive.
Questions, Doug?
Yeah, I just want, maybe, Tom, you could explain a little bit more of an overall picture here. When we invest city funds in TIFs, then what happens with that money? That's a loan, right? And how does it work?
It is in effect a loan, yes. And how it works is that when we create a district, the base value at the date of creation, the taxes on that stay with all the municipalities, county, school, city, et cetera. The taxes on the increment go into the tax increment district. And it is the tax increment district then, after collecting those taxes, that pays for a whole list of things which are in the plan for the district. That can include developer incentives, but it also can and does include other city improvements, infrastructure kinds of things. Frankly, it can be within a half a mile of the boundary of the district. Is that responsive, Doug, to your Alderman Wood? I apologize.
Yes, and so at the end of the day, the money's been paid back, and then we, the city, as a community, we've made an investment in that, and we end up with much more valuable property at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, then, once all the improvements have been made and everything's paid for, then we've got a property that may have been worth 10 million and now it's worth 70 million. It now goes back on the regular tax roll, and the city now gets taxes on 70 in my example instead of 10.
Thanks.
And we don't have a lot of cornfields to pull snowplow up, so we have to do redevelopment.
Right, thank you.
I think.
Nancy?
Yeah, just to clarify or perhaps reiterate, Tom, if you would, the district that has been created when a development occurs is actually paying the taxes for that district. So in other words, the residents of Monona are not paying for TID or TIF debt. It's the
That-
district only that is paying for it.
That is a true statement. It's the
Okay.
tax and the increment that is paying all of that. There is no effect on the tax bill for the rest of the residents of the city of Monona. And frankly, these are benefits to the rest of the city. And I will give you one example. When Monona Drive was reconstructed, that was $100 and some million operation. The feds, of course, they get the same money from the same place as the city does, us. But they paid a big chunk of it, the county paid a piece of it, and the city of Monona was on the hook for 6 to 8 million, round numbers. About 6 of that came out of tax increment districts, as opposed to being on the property tax, where if it had been on the property tax, everybody's tax bill would have been about 15 to 20% higher just because of that one expenditure. I would also ask people to go to mymonona.com. Probably on the CDA page, there is a report that deals with TIDs that have been created over the past 20 years or whatever. And there's a lot of this information I'm talking about is explained in that report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about this? Or comments? Teresa?
It's not really a question, or maybe just a request to explain more. I often hear that, you know, the riverfront development is such a wonderful example of a successful TID. Off the top of your head, can you just, if you know, some quick fun facts about how that's been benefiting our community?
Well, that's TID number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it went from,
You have the riverfront?
I'm thinking of the riverfront
She's
with
talking
the
about
skating rink and
The current.
Okay,
and
you're talking about the
Buck and
current.
Honey's. Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes.
Thank you. I misunderstood what you were talking
Yeah.
about. There is a development that prior to doing anything, the assessed value, and I'm going to leave the bank out of it because that was a brand-new building, but all the rest of it was maybe $10 million. The current assessment is now over 70. And in addition to the current assessment, the taxes on that increment are going into the districts. We got the park out of it. We all would have liked the park to have been bigger, but
And you
it
mean
is
the
what
ri-
it is.
You mean the river rink, the skating rink, the park rink?
Yes,
So-
yes, yeah,
Grand
that all
Crossing
got paid
Park.
for out of
Right.
the district.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, we've got some residential, current 1 and current 2.
Mm-hmm.
We've got commercial, including Buck and Honey's, which this gentleman referred to, and we have the hotel.
Yeah.
None of that's possible
Mm-hmm.
without the
City
TID.
investment. Yep.
And that increment has been, I mean, we broke ground for that project after I became mayor. It was 2018, I think.
The district was created in
Been in-
2015.
Right.
And it took another couple of years before
Mm-hmm.
there were some issues, including
Yeah.
the yacht club and a
Yeah.
really big sewer pipe that needed to get resolved.
But in 6 years, it's gained that much of value.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
yes.
amazing. Any other questions, comments? Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Rademacher,
Aye.
Alder Bernstein,
Aye.
Alder DePula,
All right.
Alder Holmquist,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. One final tidbit. Item I, consideration of resolution 24-7-2430, creating tax increment district number 17 and redevelopment area number 17, also put forth by the Community Development Authority. Is there a motion on this one?
Move to approve.
Second?
This is the East Side Club site.
Any questions, comments about this one? Okay, hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder Bergman.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. You can be excused, yes. And Katrina maybe as well. Thank you. And Doug? All right. All right, and we have taken care of number 2A, so moving to 2B. Consideration of Resolution 24-8-2435, authorization to submit a referendum question to exceed levy limits by $3 million for operating expenses for inclusion on the November 2024 ballot, put forth by the city administrator. Neil, you want to?
Yep, just a brief report on this. Obviously, this is an outcome of our meeting and discussion at the budget workshop on July 25th. Staff was directed to prepare at least the preliminary question for first read at this meeting this evening. That language has been included in the resolution before you. That is, again, based on largely, actually exactly from what the Wisconsin Department of Revenue would require us to do so. You'll notice these multiple blanks that are currently in there right now. The Wisconsin Department of Revenue requires specific reference to the net new construction numbers for the city in that. Those have not been finalized until August 15th, so at this point, rather than put numbers in there that could change, we are just leaving those blank and saying that they will be provided and filled in essentially for the second read on the 19th. And with that, certainly available for any questions.
Anyone have any questions or comments about this? Doug?
I just wanted to make a couple of comments, since it seems to be out there, that cutting back on capital expenses doesn't help us in operating. So in particular, like selling San Damiano would not really help us, and we couldn't apply that right to that doesn't help us run the city. So otherwise, I mean, I think that, I would just say the $3 million figure would do a lot. Really would be, tremendous. And also, I think it's absolutely essential. That's why, even though I think, we might be able to ask for a little more than $3 million, I guess I wouldn't be not inclined to propose that. I just think we really need the $3 million. We need the money to run the city as we're running it and adequately pay our people and retain them. So, yeah, I guess I would just leave it at that.
Anyone else? An issue that was raised this weekend on social media was the idea of the city instituting a sales tax to pay for these expenses rather than increasing taxes. We are not allowed by state law to institute a sales tax. That's something cities across the state have been asking for years, and the legislature just won't even consider that, except for Milwaukee, and that was a special circumstance.
Correct.
Alder Moore?
Yeah, I just, I guess to piggyback a little bit on what Doug was saying around the need for the referendum, I think there's also, and again, I understand it's complicated business, so I certainly not blaming our constituents, but I think there's also some misunderstanding, not only the difference between capital budgeting and operating, but also the city's financial position. And this is year 8 for me on the city council. And I think I'm very confident in saying that, first of all, we've been paying down the debt that the city has at a much faster rate than, as far as I know, any other administration before us. Like, we've been very intentional in holding our capital expenses every year, and in anticipation of the second piece of what I wanted to mention, which is, I don't know of any other compensation study that was done by the city, but my impression is that it was done a long time ago. And further, our need for new city facilities, including starting with a public safety building, is also something that has been staring us all in the face since before I even moved to Monona. And so I just think it's really important that the residents of Monona understand that we are living within our means, the sky isn't falling, and that it's just really difficult for communities, particularly that are have their hands tied by virtue of us doing infill development rather than having cornfields to sprawl out into, to generate the net new construction that's needed to be able to raise the capital. And so from my point of view, 8 years in, I just want to applaud the councils that I've served with, because I think that we have been budgeting smartly, and we have been budgeting conservatively. And for instance, the park that was just mentioned previously in the appearance, Grand Crossing Park and the skating rink, I mean, that's been more successful raising more funds than we even imagined in our wildest dreams. It's so popular and generates a lot, 2/3 of our operating budget is our public safety. So I just want to assure our community that the need for this is real, and without this referendum passing, we will have to cut services. And I think one of the reasons why we all moved to Monona or have stayed in Monona is because of the extraordinary staff, of the extraordinary Parks and Recreation Department and our Public Works Department and our library, our senior center, which very few other communities even have a senior center. And that, that's just not sustainable with our hands tied by the legislature. So I urge people to support this and support our staff and maintaining our services in the process.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd just add one other thing, kind of building on what Alderman Moore was talking about. We've had a number of years, I don't know, probably every year that you've been mayor, where we've had near a 0% levy limit increase.
Yeah.
And while inflation, was virtually non-existent, we were able to sort of make it work. Our finance director helped us figure that out. But really, when you had a year of about 8% inflation followed by, a year of 5 and 3.5 or whatever, it not being able to increase the levy when you're in that kind of inflationary environment was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think that was that, coincided with a lot of people leaving for better paying, doing the same work somewhere else for better pay. So it's just, it might make sense. People might think, well, inflation went up, so we ought to, you can raise the levy by that amount, but what makes sense and what is in the state law is not necessarily the same thing. So, we're limited by, as we've been saying, how much the new construction that we're able to get. And when we have a valuation of $2 billion now, that takes a lot of new construction to be significant. So.
Exactly. One thing I asked this morning, I asked staff to start working on an FAQ for the referendum page, and Neil's already got several things out there that he worked on today, and we're going to continue adding to that. But there's all these questions like the San Damiano purchase, and you give this money for TID, and why can't you use that instead? And so explaining all that, if anybody thinks of any questions that aren't there, please let Neil know. And we know there's still some that we still have to add also. There's also confusion about the assessments. Patrick shared with me something he'd heard from a resident. My assessment went up $100,000 last year. So did everybody else's, went up a lot. Doesn't that raise enough tax dollars with that? Your assessment really doesn't determine how much we can tax for operating. All your assessment does is determine what portion of the overall taxes of the city you pay for on your property. But people don't understand that. So we really have a lot of educating to do, and that's the kind of thing we can also put in the FAQ and hopefully refer people to that as well as explaining things. So, Patrick?
Like it should be noted that if your assessment went up the average, this is for citizens, right? If your assessment went up the average, you're not really going to see an increase in your taxes. If your assessment went up above the average, you'll probably see an increase proportionate to the amount. If your assessment went up below the average, then you're probably going to see a decrease. But the city doesn't get any more money because of your assessment.
Correct. And I think there's a lot of confusion about that. Alder Moore?
Yeah, let me just say too that, obviously all of us as your city council and many of the staff as well are also residents of Monona, playing by the same rules, paying the same taxes, and I don't think any one of us feels terrific about writing a bigger tax check. I know I certainly don't. My assessment, which I know is not my tax bill, but my assessment went up 28%. And that's on a tiny house relative to a lot of the houses in Monona. And so none of us are saying we like more taxes. And if there was a way for us to do this, as we have successfully for many, many, many years, and retain the high quality of services and the high quality of the staff that Monona enjoys, we would do that. And there simply isn't. When you're in a landlocked community like we are, the challenges are real. So it's not that we're not sympathetic to the fact that this is hard for some people, and we understand that it's not an easy ask, but we also know that the people of Monona, the residents of Monona, expect high quality services and a high quality response from our public safety. Police and fire, and terrific programs from Park and Rec, and again, our library and everything else that we offer the community. Those are all reasons why people choose to move here. And as my dad used to say, there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Exactly. Teresa?
Yeah. I just wanted to say, comment on two things that were brought up earlier. The San Damiano property. I think when I hear unhappy comments about that property, I think the underlying communication is the person thinks that we could just develop that property into big high-rise, buildings and collect a whole bunch of money on that. But tonight, we also heard about some TIF districts. We heard about areas in our community that are not already beautiful areas. So we invest in them. We make them beautiful. We make them prosperous. We make them, high-producing properties. And we all benefit from those areas that already exist out there that could use a little boost and leave the spaces that are already in no need of our beautification and help. We can have both. The second thing, something the mayor brought up, is the difference between an operating and a capital budget. And unless you really have that sort of frame of mind, when you read the language in the referendum, the word operating or operational might just slip your attention and you don't really think about it. It's just a word. But it is a very intentional word that is used in the language of the referendum. It means something very specific. It's kind of like me as a homeowner. I have things on my monthly budget that I have to pay for. I have to pay for my heat, my cooling, my taxes. There are certain things about being a property owner that I cannot defer. I have to pay for them. And some of those things, the cost just keeps going up and up and up. Not because of anything I've done. There are other things that I might not have to buy, like a new car or improvement to my house or my property. That's a different sort of pile of money. That's my, my capital budget, if you will. So prices just continue to rise around things that we have no control over, and we're not alone as the community. So many other communities are in the same position.
Anyone else? Mark?
Just one. Just so everyone knows, I think I sent it out this week. We just got the preliminary numbers from DOR, and our net new construction was 0.45%. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the final number. Second lowest in the county, Dane County, between villages and cities. Last year we were negative, so in 2 years, we're only allowed to increase our property tax levy for operating. Will be rounding to 25,000 is what it ends up being. For 2 years, that's basically last year was 0, now this year will be 25,000. So our 0.45 is what our net new construction is.
Doesn't go a long way towards paying increased health insurance and
No,
salaries.
Right.
and-
Yeah.
that's the reality. We'll have 25,000 more.
Yeah.
Benefits for one FTE.
Yeah, right. Just healthcare benefits for one employee. That's what that gets us.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone else? Well, this will come back for a final read next time with the complete language. It will be pretty similar to this, just with the numbers filled in. So if there aren't any other questions, we will move on to reports of committees and commissions and boards, and please include any sustainability efforts or DEI efforts that you'd like to talk about with your committees, starting with Alder DePula.
Let's see, give me a second. Do I have any updates?
You have no report?
No, I don't think so. I was just thinking, there was something I was thinking about earlier today, and I can't, it's escaping me at the moment.
You think
So,
about it, you can come back.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah,
Alder
no
Holm-
report.
Alder Holmquist.
Public Works is meeting this week at 6:30. Agendas on the web.
Patrick?
Yes, for everybody else that noticed, we had one of our officers injured the other night who's recovering, and there's an update. He has a mild concussion. But is home and resting and looking to recover. So that's it.
He's actually been back on the job, actually,
Yeah.
already.
Oh,
So,
good. Even better.
Yep.
Alder Wood?
MPO meets this Wednesday. We'll be looking at some amendments to the TIP program, meeting the new CARPC director, and a bunch of wonky transportation stuff.
Alder Rademacher?
I'll give an update on landmarks. We are in the middle of sort of a really fun, some stuff going on. May, every year the month of May is Historic Preservation Month, and we've been able to reach out to the Madison Historic Trust, I believe their name is, and in long story short, we're going to get some assistance from this established group in putting together a walking tour of some of Monona's landmarks for next May. It should be really fun. It's just a nice activity coming out of the Landmarks Commission. Other things, other committees I would update on, one of them just sustainability and DEIB. I'll put them both together. Not so much from the committee, but some of you may have noticed some really fantastic news that just hit August 2nd. State of Wisconsin launched a first in the nation program related to home energy efficiency updates, rebates. Everybody is eligible. If you're thinking of putting in, a heat pump or air conditioner or energy efficient appliances or insulation, anything to sort of tighten down your home and conserve energy to save on costs, there is now quite a bit of money available. It looks like, what did I read? Oh, I'm just scanning the press release here. Let's see, $8.8 billion in federal funding. Very nice.
Is this loans or rebates?
It's a rebate program. And everyone is eligible, even multi-family buildings are eligible.
Commercial property too?
I don't, my quick scan of the press release, I don't know. But the timeline, the turnaround time looks like it's pretty quick. You got to reach out and start submitting some paperwork pretty soon. I would say, I posted a link to the press release on my Facebook page, my campaign Facebook page. Otherwise, you could just Google up, Governor Evers' press releases. This is all part of the Federal Inflation Reduction Act under the Biden-Harris administration. Just fabulous work. And the DEI component is that even though everyone is eligible, there will also be sort of tiers of qualification with those in lower incomes getting a greater chunk of this money. I think as we can surmise, people in lower incomes spend a proportionately higher amount of their paycheck on heating and cooling and energy costs. You may have heard of the phrase energy justice, right? So that's part of that. Rereading the press release, it looks like Wisconsin has allocated $149 million for this program. Pretty sweet.
Thank you.
Nancy, were you going to say anything about transit? I don't want to steal your thunder. I'll just quickly say Madison Metro had a public hearing, so Transit Commission. Madison Metro had a public hearing a week or so ago. I just hopped on the Zoom call. It was nothing coordinated by the city of Monona. It was really just, one final last, part of the process for approving the contract with Monona. There were some public comments. 8 out of 10 very, very positive comments, all in favor of the system, the transit system. The funny thing, the only concerns that were raised were from people who wanted to see more. They wanted to see a greater reach to serve more people. But as we all know, this is a starting place. We're starting, we build on it as we go.
Alder Moore.
Thank you. I just wanted to reference one plan-related thing which has gained some traction on social media, and for which I think it's important that there's not misinformation, and that is proposal that came in front of the Plan Commission to combine two lots at 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive. That's directly across the street from the Crema Cafe. It's a lot that's been there. It's actually two lots that have been there for a long time. The suggestion that was made on social media was that a large development there had been approved, and that would not be the case. What has been discussed is the joining of those two smaller lots by the owner of the property, Harlan LLC. But all the Plan Commission has seen at this point is through a pre-hearing only. So we have not approved anything. And in the pre-hearing, it was not condos, but apartments. And it was a proposal for 20 apartments total. In the pre-hearing, and I would say the general recommendation from the Plan Commission, the feedback that the Plan Commission provided was we felt like the proposal that was too big of a footprint for the size of the lot, or currently lots. And so the only thing that's been discussed is the CSM, and there has not been approval of that development, and that's one of many developments listed on mymonona.com.
Thank you. Alder Bernstein.
I have no report.
Okay, Chief McMullen.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for accommodating my remote access one more time. I've been working steadily throughout the meeting here, so I'm going to be very brief to let Chief Cheney have his time if he likes. First of all, I want to just state how proud I am of our police officers. They do a lot with a small staff, and they're constantly busy. And yet they're always there when we need them on calls. We've been busy. We had a structure fire this morning down on Monona Drive. You'll all see the press release tomorrow. It ended up being less than what it was paged out as. But a great response by my volunteers. Enough to staff the second truck for a second call that came in while we were tied up on that structure fire call. It stays busy. But in good news, our provisional firefighter EMT that we hired via MOU this last May was accepted into paramedic school. He'll be going to the accelerated class starting September 16th. So should be done by the end of April, which is really great news. We got him into the quickest class that we could get him into, and he's raring to go. So very excited about that. Other than that, I also want to say thank you to the council. I understand you guys get a lot of comments and a lot of feedback from the community on how and where you budget and the financial status of the city. You all have been very supportive of the fire department, and we're appreciative. It's been a good almost 4 years now. Come next month, it'll be 4 years. And I'm still having fun. So with that, I will pass it off to the next person in line.
Thank you. Chief Cheney.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
We've had a busy few days.
It's been a busy weekend. Obviously, I put out a couple of press releases. I do that because I work for the public, for the city of Monona, and the public has a right to know the things that are going on within the city and what's going on with your police department. So yes, it was a busy weekend for your police department, and thank you for all of your support and the residents who've reached out and sent emails or called offering support and wondering how Jocko is doing. Jocko is doing okay. So things are well. I'm really up here to say thank you for that, but also to encourage all of you and members of the public who are listening to attend National Night Out next weekend, or next week, I should say, on the 13th. Please consider showing up. Is it next week or 2 weeks?
13th, next week.
Yeah, geez.
Week from nice.
Yeah, next week.
Week from tomorrow,
on
I should say.
Tuesday. From 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. That'll be probably our biggest national night out in terms of people and organizations who are attending, to include, I think, every reach of the city departments are all going to have some participation, so we can celebrate Monona and Monona City Services. So, and then MedFlight is also scheduled to land. They were last year, had a call, but hopefully they don't have a call. That's a good sign, and they can land at our wonderful, wonderful park. So I'm really here to just pitch that. I hope to see all of you there, and if you're not going to be able to make it, I'll have to meet up with you to give you sort of what happened and the lowdown and some cool stories from the event. So that's it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to because I'll be working at the polls, but
That's
Neil-
also very important, Mayor.
Yeah, it's very important. But we're planning on Neil having a table there about the referendum, kind of our first shot at public information. We sat down and figured out a whole schedule last week, and so.
Absolutely.
If
Thank
you have
you.
anybody who has questions, send them his way.
Send them to Neil.
I had a question too, because I know we had some vehicle damage
We
over
did.
the weekend. Where are we at with that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So, your police department is currently equipped with 9 patrol-ready vehicles. Patrol-ready meaning that any one of the patrol officers can get into that vehicle and operate it in patrol. Some of those I've allocated towards, like, for example, the community resource officer or our supervisors, given assignments, but they can be moved around or utilized whenever those positions aren't working that day. In the past, since May, since our squad car was rear-ended by a tow truck, as you remember, and injuring our officers, this weekend now makes it 4 vehicles that are in need of repair. Vehicles that are totaled takes longer to acquire, and right now we're looking at one for sure totaled vehicle, the tow truck that was squad that was hit by the tow truck, but possibly one of the cars involved this weekend. We haven't gotten a final assessment. We got to get that in, but that's probably going to be potentially a totaled out car. The other 2 are repairable. So within a couple weeks, we should get at least 2 cars back in the fleet. But we're sitting operationally okay. I wouldn't say comfortably right now. Okay as in it's not impacting city police services, which is good, but because you've authorized 9 patrol vehicles in the fleet, and which is why we have that many. So we're doing okay. I think there's some pride issues that we're working through right now, and lessons learned, and sort of recovering from, making a mistake potentially. It's still under investigation, but I think that there's probably a good lesson learned from that incident. We're very fortunate nobody was injured from that particular incident. However, the one incident did involve an injury in which we were rear-ended by a minivan. But fortunately, that officer is back patrolling your city today. So he's back on the street. So thank you for that question. We're just dealing with accidents as they happen. None of them were at-fault accidents, even when we were rear-ended, right? And so I think that's why they call them accidents. Now, there's consequences to every accident, but they're accidents.
How long, the one car was totaled, 5-6 weeks ago, wasn't it?
In May.
How long is it going to take to get the replacement? 'Cause I know we waited a long time for that.
Yeah, so we ordered it, we found a car at a dealership that's local, but we normally don't go through that dealership. And we were able to get relatively close to the state bid numbers for that car. And now we're waiting till Ford says it's going to be built and it's going to be delivered, and we never know that until they start the process
So we
of
have no
building the car.
idea.
We have no idea. Yeah, it's a good question.
Hopefully, things have sped up a little bit since 2 years ago.
Yeah, and to be honest, part of it's because your chief is really picky about how our cars are equipped. I've decided that rear air conditioning and heat is important for our, persons we take into custody. That was not a standard option until recently. But if you try to order a car prior to when we ordered our last one, you'd have to build that out or have to try to find one specifically that had that option. And then I'm not a fan of all white vehicles. So, as you know, our squad cars are blue and white, but it's on the reverse, right? So we would have to figure out what to do with an all-white car. I think it's important for us to differentiate ourselves from our biggest neighbor right next door because we are Monona, and I don't want anybody to be confused that although they're a wonderful agency, that we're Madison. So, so I'd like to stick with a solid car, colored car, or a blue car that we can put the blue and white Monona label on, which limits the options available.
Yeah, okay.
And the hybrids, Ford stopped making the hybrids, but there's still a couple of lingering hybrids out there, and there's still, we run into some of those same issues as we did before with them going into limp mode, which means that there's some powertrain issues that they're still trying to get worked out.
Limp mode.
Didn't,
Yeah,
That's neat.
that's their technical term.
I think Mark said tonight that we just took delivery on the F-150.
It's parked right out front. It's not, doesn't have the equipment in it yet because
Right.
we're waiting on the parts, but a couple of weeks ago, we took delivery of that F-150 that this group approved.
In lieu of a squad, right?
In lieu of the squad, it is going to go into patrol.
Yeah.
But now you just have to wait for the equipment to come in and for it to be outfitted, and it's gray, it came gray, similar like one of our patrol squads that has the Monona Police on the side. So it'll be marked technically, but it's a gray car.
One question, and that's, the damaged police cars got me thinking. What's our disaster plan when it comes to, like, if something happened and we lost like 5 cars for some reason, like, what do we do? We can't go to like Enterprise and rent one.
I wish we could.
Yeah, what do we do?
We have great, even if it wasn't me sitting in this chair as your chief, I'd like to think that regardless of who sits here, if other municipalities see that we're in need, they would come. Over this weekend, after reading or hearing about the incidents and knowing that, squads are precious, 3 chiefs of police reached out to me to offer unmarked squad cars for us to utilize if we need. And I would expect you to authorize me to do the same if one of those communities was in a similar situation. So we would not steal, but beg and borrow.
Well, that said, I have a 2013 Fiat 500. You guys can use it.
The Popemobile. Yes. Thank you for the offer.
You'd really be undercover.
Yes, you would be.
Like Mr. Bean.
A lot of bicycle enforcement, probably.
Yes. If you could catch them.
Yes, good point.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Brian?
Hang on.
Already did one more.
Sorry, Brian.
I know part of this answer because I've asked it, but I think I've heard it at least 3 times today, and so my guess is other people might be asking out there. When police vehicles are damaged or totaled, and you're talking about, well, we found this one, it's not a dealer we're normally getting, can we get it? Can you generally talk through the finance aspect and look at the administrator to potentially also do that? Like, I don't think people are asking for the specific, but I think, well, one of the messages I got were, how many do you have total and how many more do you have on order? And the presumption was that there's a large cost to the city, so.
I can start, Chief, fill in if there's any
I'm
gaps
happy
on
to
this.
fill in.
Obviously, we have, in certain cases, obviously we do have insurance that will be allocated. We do have deductibles that we are required to certainly have to pay and will fund. It's certainly in terms of parts, there's lots of factors that go into it. It is a fairly complicated answer, actually. So the conversations between the chief and Leah and Mark in terms of how exactly we're proceeding with that, it's not just a flip turnaround overnight. We know exactly what the cost is going to be. But certainly, we do have insurance coverage on those vehicles. There is a deductible that is included as part of that. There is obviously, in this case, there may be damage to an outside vehicle, a personal vehicle, that will have to be probably paid for as part of that. That will not, depending on what the final number is, probably as part of underneath our deductible, that'll probably be a city cost. So there are certainly costs involved in an incident like this, absolutely, but, and we won't know exactly what that final number is for probably a couple weeks. So we really have that. So, we are doing everything we can, certainly in terms of the first incident that we're talking about, making sure we're actually working with the city attorney in terms of not only we have our standard payment that would come for a new vehicle. Obviously, a newer vehicle has got a higher value, insurance value on it than an older one, even though the frustrating part about that is obviously the cost to re-equip it and get something new is still up at that higher number, but if it's an older car, we're only getting a certain dollar figure for that car to come back. So that depending on the vehicle and depending on the circumstances, we'll see exactly what that cost is going to be here in the coming weeks. So there will be a cost, absolutely, to the city that we'll have to fund for this, but we don't know.
The vehicle that was
we don't know.
rear-ended by the tow truck was a relatively new vehicle to the city. So obviously, the driver of that tow truck was cited by the Madison Police Department. And we've been working to address being compensated, or will be in the future compensated, for any loss the city has sustained as a result of getting a new car and equipping it, right? We just learned today that from the outfitter, because we couldn't get into the back of that vehicle because it was crushed in, actually the fire department, thank you very much, helped in opening it up before we sent it off to the outfitter. And they've identified that there's lots of damaged components that we cannot reuse in the vehicle that's coming to replace it. And the other thing too was the squad crash from this weekend that was not the rear end crash. That was an older car that was likely totaled out. That was a car that was set to be replaced, as it were, in the coming years here, probably next year. And the equipment is not generally transferable, or would not have been transferable to a new car anyway. I'm not saying that there's a bright side of the story. I'm saying that the cost that we would have to replace those items would have been something that we would have asked for in a future capital project. So we're withholding that project in essence until there's time to ask for that.
Short version holders will be kind of evaluating that in terms of if we have to make some adjustments to the capital request. We may need to be doing some of that in terms of ensuring the money gets allocated where we need to for this. So,
and the sub question was answered in there, and that has to do with recovering some of the costs that we are incurring when it's not our fault.
Right.
And that was some of the additional comments or questions I received. So
we have actually asked our city attorney to look into on a couple different cases, particularly that initial instance, to if we need to pursue direct legal action against them, we will be doing so on that.
And the city, it goes back to the general fund. We auction off our cars as well and our equipment, and that that helps offset some of these costs as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
But we still don't want to get in the crashes.
Yes.
Either our fault or
Absolutely.
not. That's the goal. Your officers train regularly to drive in pursuit mode and to use due regard. And, I don't have a good excuse to you other than to say at the end of the day, humans make mistakes. And we're fortunate that the officer relied on their training to prevent more significant potentially impact in this and made the correct decisions to, unfortunately, this wonderful, very supportive individual whose car we dinked, for lack of a better term, the officer made the decision to impact that car versus Kareem elsewhere. And it was an understandable situation, but we're working to address it to avoid it from happening in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aline, did you have any news?
In-person voting goes now through Friday at 5 p.m. It's Tuesday through Friday, 8 to 5. And then voting for the partisan primary is next week, Tuesday. Opens at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay. Neil?
A couple kudos to actually several staff who've been working to get the in-person voting up and running to the extent that it has been. That's been Public Works staff, Aline staff, lots of folks really working to make sure that everything's up and running and accessible and working the way it's supposed to. So shout out to them. It's always a fun type of year, and this is a dress rehearsal for fall. So it'll really be a busy time for everybody when we do that. So kudos to Aline and her staff for all the work they've been doing. Just a couple quick updates. Capital budgets are obviously underway. We're working on getting those turned in. Committees are reviewing those as we sit here. So looking forward to keeping those on schedule and bringing those forward. Going to be working and sitting in on a meeting next week with the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District regarding some of their budgeting and the impacts that are coming down to the city. Mayor and I have actually sat in on a couple different meetings with multiple communities expressing concern over lack of input to that budget process and kind of feeling like the cake is already baked by the time we get the budget. So we were not the only one, including the city of Madison, actually, I would argue. Not only the suburban communities, but also the city of Madison was expressing some concerns with the overall budget process. So they are in the process of hiring a new director. So we're also taking this opportunity to revisit that budget discussion in terms of how that works and comes down. I mean, they've been dealing with 9-10% increases over multiple years each year. Obviously, significantly outpacing what we're looking at here, and I think most municipalities we're looking at. So trying to kind of get a little bit better process in that. And they've been very good to work with at this point, and we're pleased that staff is going to be hopefully making some changes with that. I think Director Plowman and myself will be meeting with the Dane County Human Services, the Housing Access and Affordability Team. Some of their, I think I know them as the CDBG folks in old school terms. I'm just going to be having a meeting to just talk about their programs and any projects we think we may be lining up, see if there's some opportunity to leverage some programs and maybe some funding in the future, either for the city directly or through other nonprofits or other projects. So it's a good source of funds that's allocated every year, and a lot of times they are looking for qualified projects. So I think we'd love to see some of that investment here in Monona. So just a couple of verses we have been working on related to the Civic Center Public Safety Building. We had interviews for our construction manager to help us with really developing more detailed cost estimates so we can do some planning related to that. 4 very good firms. We're very excited to have all 4. We're doing some follow-up with them right now. And specifically including diversity and some sustainability questions in our follow-up to those interview firms in terms of how they could address that. Some of them already kind of, the sustainability especially was already incorporated into several of the presentations. Not surprising since all 4 of them do work in Dane County, so they were on the ball in terms of putting those things forward. But certainly following up and incorporating those into those as well. In addition, another RFP we're working on right now is our kind of update to our housing element for our comprehensive plan. So we're being very specific and very targeted in terms of including a lot of the work that the DEI committee has done and including those reference plan documents right in the RFP. So proposing firms can take a look at those things in addition to kind of identifying several other kind of housing related goals that tie into one of the things that were discussed in that process. Just on a personal note, was able to attend the Val Phillips sculpture dedication, not statue, it's a sculpture. Was able to attend that, and if anybody has not had a chance to get down and go see that on the Capitol Square, I strongly recommend it. It's on the Hamilton side, so I think it's over like right across from, used to be the Inn on the Park, the best of the hotel, right on the square there on that corner. So just folks, that's basically the first statue of a black woman anywhere on any state capitol grounds anywhere in the United States, and it's here in our state capitol. So, and there's some in indoors and other places and some other artwork, but as far as an outdoor sculpture, this is the only one that's on capitol grounds anywhere in the country. So kind of historic making in the process for that. So it was a wonderful event. I can highly recommend folks to go check it out and learn more about Val Phillips if you don't know about her. Absolutely amazing woman.
Really
the impact she's had on Wisconsin politics and Milwaukee especially is simply astonishing. I mean, it was, talk about just a giant in political, in local politics. She was really an amazing woman. So, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Nancy, did you have something to add?
Yeah, not something to add, but I have a question actually related to the election. So, is the Dropbox back up in use for the primary, or is it only starting in November?
We are not currently using it for the August primary. I have been in discussions with the city attorney and the police chief regarding whether I can effectively monitor the drop box, and at this time, I cannot. So it most likely will not be up for the November election either,
Unfortunate,
unfortunately.
yeah.
Thank you.
I just had a couple short things. For anybody out in the community who's watching, who doesn't know this, they have started digging on the Bloom property. I've had several emails about why that hasn't started, and it's such a mess and whatever, so really happy to see that it actually has started. And then I mentioned before that Neil and I sat down and kind of worked out a schedule of events where we want to have a presence about the referendum. It's a whole range of, from National Night Out to back to school nights to, we're going to have a couple public information meetings, the Fall Festival. I'm at the Farmers Market every month. We might do some additional dates there too. So just a lot of different things, but we may definitely be looking for some help if people would like to volunteer to sit at a table for an event and explain what's happening. And we're working on some information to hand out about that, and I think you're talking about some kind of a board to put up with information and whatever, right?
Absolutely,
So-
and we'll certainly be referring a lot of folks to the website. We've got, so mymonona.com/referendum will be where we're gonna be posting most of our information. So just handing out certainly links to that. Check everything out that we've got there. It's everything from our compensation plan to our survey data to our frequently asked questions to, we're gonna have really hopefully a host of all those resources available on the website, so.
And I would say definitely look at that FAQ, because a lot of the questions we're gonna be getting are there. And we heard some of them tonight.
And we'll be updating that and making edits, and if there's corrections, changes, additional information, that will constantly be updating that. So every time we'll be putting a note when the last update was done as well, so.
Okay, so that's my updates. I guess we do have some appointments tonight. First of all, Aaron Embry to the Park and Recreation Board, effective immediately through April 2025. And then we have 4 election inspectors, effective immediately through December 31st of 2025. All listed here. Is there a motion to approve those?
Move to approve.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in
Second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. And finally, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.